My daughter Lisa told me I wasn't welcome at her house for Christmas because her new stepmom wanted a quiet family celebration. She said it over the phone while I was decorating my little apartment, trying to make it feel like home for the holidays. It hurt because this was our first Christmas since the divorce, and I thought we'd spend it together like we always had. Mom, Lisa said, her voice sounding tired and distant. Jessica thinks it will be better if it's just immediate family this year. Immediate family? I repeated. What am I then? You know what I mean, she said quickly. Dad's new wife wants to host her first Christmas dinner. She's been planning it for months. And where does that leave me? I asked, staring at the sad little tree I'd put up in my living room. The ornaments we'd made together over the years looked lonely hanging there. You can come over next weekend, Lisa offered. We'll do our own Christmas then. It won't be the same, I said. Nothing's the same anymore, she replied, and I could hear the sadness in her voice too. I know this is hard, Mom, but Jessica's really trying to make this work. She wants everyone to be happy. Everyone except me, apparently. That's not fair, isn't it? I said, feeling anger rise in my chest. Your father gets a new wife, a new house, a new life, and I get pushed out like I'm some old furniture that doesn't match the decor. Lisa was quiet for a long moment. Mom, please don't make this harder than it already is. I'm just trying to keep the peace. Whose peace? I wanted to ask. But I didn't want to put her in the middle more than she already was. Fine, I said, though nothing about it felt fine. I'll see you next weekend then. Before we continue, let me quickly thank you for your continuous support. This means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to Granny's Tales. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout out in our next story. Today's special shout out goes to Maria Rodriguez from Miami. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now, let's go deeper into the story. After I hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment and cried. 23 years of Christmas mornings. 23 years of Lisa running down the stairs in her pajamas, eyes bright with excitement. 23 years of making pancakes shaped like Christmas trees and letting her open one present early. All of that was being erased by a woman who'd known my daughter for less than a year. I looked at the gifts I'd already wrapped and placed under my small tree. A sweater Lisa had mentioned wanting. Books by her favorite author. The music box that played the lullaby I used to sing to her when she was little. They sat there like evidence of my foolishness. Evidence that I believed nothing could really change between us. My neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, knocked on my door that evening. She was carrying a plate of cookies and wearing a concerned expression. I heard you crying through the walls, she said gently. Are you all right, dear? I let her in and told her everything over cups of tea that grew cold while we talked. That woman has no right to keep you from your own daughter, Mrs. Thompson said, shaking her gray head. Christmas is about family. Real family. Not some new wife playing house. But what can I do? I asked. Lisa's trying to keep everyone happy. You show up anyway, Mrs. Thompson said firmly. You're her mother. You raised her. You have every right to be there on Christmas morning. But she specifically asked me not to come. Then you make her remember why she needs you come, the old woman said with a knowing smile. Her words stuck with me all night. I couldn't sleep, couldn't stop thinking about Christmas morning without Lisa, about her waking up in that big new house with people who barely knew her, trying to create traditions that had nothing to do with the life we'd built together. By dawn on Christmas Eve, I'd made my decision. I loaded my car with all the presents and drove across town to the neighborhood where my ex-husband now lived with his new wife. The house was enormous, with perfect landscaping and a wreath that looked like it came from a magazine. Everything about it screamed money and taste, and the kind of life I'd never been able to provide. I parked across the street and watched through the big windows. I could see Lisa helping in the kitchen, wearing an apron I'd never seen before. She looked older somehow, more grown up, more like a stranger. Jessica moved around the kitchen with the confidence of someone who owned everything in it. She was tall and elegant, everything I wasn't. I understood why my ex-husband had chosen her. What I didn't understand was why I had to disappear for her to be happy. I sat there for an hour, watching my daughter in a life that didn't include me. Finally, I got out of the car. The doorbell played a fancy tune that echoed through the house. I could hear voices inside, then footsteps. The door opened, and there was Lisa, her face going from curious to shocked in an instant. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I came to see my daughter on Christmas Eve," I said simply. Lisa looked over her shoulder nervously. "Mom, we talked about this. You asked me not to come to Christmas dinner," I said. "You didn't say anything about Christmas Eve." Before Lisa could respond, Jessica appeared behind her. She was even more intimidating up close, wearing a perfect red dress and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Hello, Susan," she said coolly. "We weren't expecting you." "That seems to be a theme lately," I replied. Jessica's smile tightened. "Perhaps we should talk outside," she suggested, stepping onto the porch and closing the door behind her. Lisa started to follow, but Jessica held up a hand. "This is between adults," she said. I felt my temper flare. "Don't talk to my daughter like she's a child," I said. "She's 25 years old. She can make her own decisions about who she talks to." Jessica's perfect composure cracked just slightly. "Of course," she said, "but I think it would be better if we handled this privately." "Better for who?" I asked. "For you?" "Because it's certainly not better for Lisa to be caught in the middle of whatever game you're playing." "I'm not playing any game," Jessica said, her voice getting sharper. "I'm trying to create a peaceful family environment. By excluding me, I'm Lisa's mother. I've been her family since the day she was born. You've been here for what, 10 months? Jessica crossed her arms. "I understand this is difficult for you, but you need to respect boundaries." "Whose boundaries? Lisa's or yours?" I stepped closer. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're making decisions for everyone else." The door opened again, and Lisa stepped out, looking miserable. "Please stop," she said quietly. "Both of you. This is exactly what I was trying to avoid." "Then don't avoid it," I said. "Deal with it." I turned to face my daughter fully. "Lisa, do you really not want me here? Or is this about keeping peace with your new stepmother?" Lisa's eyes filled with tears. "Mom, it's complicated." "It's really not," I said. "Either you want your mother in your life, or you don't. Either our 25 years together matter, or they don't. Either I'm family, or I'm not. Which is it?" Jessica started to interrupt, but I held up my hand. "This is between me and MY daughter," I said firmly. Lisa looked between us, torn. The front door opened again, and my ex-husband David appeared. "What's going on out here?" he asked, taking in the scene. "Your wife seems to think she gets to decide when I can see my daughter," I said. David looked uncomfortable. "Susan, we're trying to have a nice Christmas. So I shot back with MY daughter. The daughter I raised while you worked 60-hour weeks. The daughter I took to every school play, every doctor's appointment, every heartbreak. Remember me, David? I used to be your wife. Now I'm just some inconvenience you'd rather forget." "That's not true," he said quietly. "Then prove it," I said. "Let me see my daughter on Christmas. Let me be part of her life instead of some dirty secret you hide from your new wife." Jessica stepped forward again. "I think you're being dramatic," she said. "Am I?" I asked. "Then explain to me why a mother can't see her child on Christmas. Explain to me why you get to make that decision. Explain to me why your comfort matters more than 25 years of love and history." Jessica opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked at David for support, but he was staring at the ground. Lisa finally spoke up. "I want my mom here," she said quietly. Jessica turned to her in surprise. "But we planned everything so carefully." "You can plan it again," Lisa said, her voice getting stronger. "My mom belongs here too. She's not going anywhere just because you married my dad." Jessica's perfect mask slipped entirely. "This is my home," she said coldly, "and I have every right to decide who's welcome in it." "Actually, you don't," David said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. "This is Lisa's home too, and if she wants her mother here, then she should be here." Jessica stared at him in shock. "David, we agreed. We agreed to have Christmas dinner," he said. "We never agreed to exclude Susan entirely." I looked at my ex-husband with surprise. in all our fights during the divorce. He'd never stood up for me like this. "Thank you," I said quietly. He nodded. "I'm sorry, Susan. I should have said something sooner." Jessica's face was pale with anger. "Fine," she said tightly. "But I'm not changing my menu or my seating arrangements." "I don't need special accommodations," I said. "I just need to see my daughter." Lisa stepped forward and hugged me tight. "I'm sorry, Mom," she whispered. I was scared of making everyone angry, so I tried to make everyone happy instead. "You can't make everyone happy, sweetie," I whispered back. "Sometimes you just have to choose what's right." We went inside, and I got my first real look at David's new life. Everything was pristine and expensive and utterly without personality. It looked like a hotel lobby. But Lisa led me to the mantel, where a small collection of ornaments hung that I recognized, the ones we'd made together over the years. She'd brought them with her to this new house, this new family. "I brought part of us with me," she said softly. I couldn't leave everything behind. My throat tightened. "I brought something too," I said, pulling a small wrap box from my purse. It was a photo album filled with pictures of all our Christmases together. 25 years of Christmas mornings, cookie baking, gift wrapping, tree decorating. 25 years of joy and laughter and love. Lisa flipped through the pages with tears in her eyes. "Look how happy we were," she said. "We still can be," I said. "Different doesn't have to mean worse. It just means we have to work a little harder to stay connected." Jessica watched us from across the room, her expression unreadable. David sat heavily in a chair, looking older than I remembered. "I know this is awkward," I said to the room in general, "but we're all adults here. We can figure out how to make this work. For Lisa's sake, if nothing else." Jessica finally spoke. "I suppose we could set an extra place at the table." She said stiffly. "Thank you," I said. "I know this isn't what you planned." Jessica nodded curtly and disappeared into the kitchen. David followed her, probably to smooth things over. Lisa and I sat together on an expensive sofa, looking through the photo album. "Remember this one?" she said, pointing to a picture of her at age 7, covered in flour after we'd tried to make cookies from scratch. We ended up ordering pizza instead. I laughed, but the cookies eventually turned out fine. Most things do, if you're patient enough. Dinner was awkward at first. Jessica had clearly not planned for 5 people, and the table setting looked thrown together. But as we ate, the tension slowly started to ease. Lisa told stories about our old Christmas traditions. David shared memories I'd forgotten. Even Jessica began to relax slightly, though she remained guarded. After dinner, we exchanged gifts in the living room. Jessica had clearly spent a fortune on Lisa's presents. Designer clothes, expensive jewelry, things I could never afford. When Lisa opened my gifts, I felt embarrassed by their simplicity. The sweater looked cheap next to Jessica's designer offerings. But when Lisa opened the music box and it played our lullaby, she started crying. "This was my favorite song when I was little," she told Jessica. "Mom used to sing it to me every night." She wound it up and let it play, the sweet melody filling the expensive room with something money couldn't buy. Memories, history, love that had lasted through everything. Jessica watched Lisa's reaction with something that might have been understanding, or maybe just resignation. When it was time for me to leave, Lisa walked me to the car. "I'm glad you came," she said, "even though I asked you not to." "I'm glad I came too," I said. "But next time, let's talk about these things honestly instead of tiptoeing around everyone else's feelings." She nodded. "I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. And that's never going to change, no matter who else joins this family." As I drove home, I reflected on the strange evening. It hadn't been the Christmas I'd planned, but it had been real, messy and complicated and honest. Maybe that was better than the perfect fairy tale Jessica had been trying to create. Maybe families weren't supposed to be perfect. Maybe they were just supposed to be true. The next morning, Christmas Day, Lisa called me early. "Mom," she said, her voice bright, "can you come over for breakfast? Jessica wants to try making our Christmas tree pancakes." I was surprised. "She wants to learn our tradition?" Lisa laughed. She said if she's going to be part of this family, she should know how to make them properly. Turns out she's not much of a cook. I smiled, feeling something like hope. I'll be right there, I said. When I arrived, Jessica was standing in the kitchen wearing an apron covered in flour, looking frustrated and very human for the first time. The pancakes were definitely not tree-shaped, more like abstract art, I said, examining her efforts. Jessica laughed despite herself. I thought it would be easier, she admitted. Lisa makes it look so simple. Here, I said, moving to the stove. Let me show you. It's all in the wrist motion. We cooked together, Jessica asking questions about the batter consistency and the right temperature. She was actually quite pleasant when she wasn't trying to be perfect. As we worked, she told me about her own childhood Christmases, which had been formal and cold. I never had traditions like this, she said wistfully. My family didn't really do fun. Well, now you do, I said, if you want to. She looked at me with surprise. You'd be willing to share your traditions with me? They're Lisa's traditions too, I pointed out. And if you're going to be her family, then I guess they're yours as well. We ate the slightly lopsided pancakes together, and I taught Jessica the stories behind each of our Christmas ornaments. She listened intently, asking questions and seeming genuinely interested in the history she'd married into. When it was time to leave, Jessica walked me to the door. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For showing me that love doesn't have to be possessive, that there's room for everyone if we just make room. I looked at this woman who'd seemed so threatening just yesterday. She was younger than me, probably scared of being a stepmother, trying to build something new without knowing how to honor what came before. I think we can make this work, I said, if we all try. She nodded. I'd like that. Lisa needs us both. Over the following weeks, something unexpected happened. Jessica began calling me with questions about Lisa's favorite foods, her childhood fears, the stories behind family photos. She genuinely wanted to understand the person my daughter had been before she became part of their lives. And slowly, I began to see that Jessica wasn't trying to replace me. She was trying to ADD to Lisa's life, not subtract from it. The difference was significant. By New Year's, we'd established a new rhythm. Lisa would spend Christmas Eve with me, making cookies and watching old movies like we always had. Christmas Day would be at David and Jessica's house, with all of us together. It wasn't the same as before, but it was good in its own way. Different, but not diminished. On New Year's Eve, Jessica called me with an invitation. We're having a small party, she said. Just family. Would you like to come? I was touched by the gesture. I'd love to, I said. At the party, I watched Lisa laughing with David and Jessica, and I felt something I hadn't expected. Peace. My daughter was happy. She had more people to love her now, not fewer. And I had learned that love multiplies rather than divides, that there was room at the table for everyone who genuinely cared about Lisa's well-being. As midnight approached, we all stood together on the back deck, watching fireworks light up the sky. Here's to new beginnings, David said, raising his glass. To family, Jessica added, looking directly at me. To love that's big enough for everyone, I said, and Lisa squeezed my hand. The fireworks exploded overhead in brilliant colors, and I thought about how much had changed in just 1 week. How showing up, even when you're not wanted, sometimes leads to exactly where you need to be. How fighting for your place in someone's life can create space for everyone to belong. Later, as I drove home to quiet streets, I thought about Mrs. Thompson's advice. She'd been right. Sometimes you have to show up anyway. Sometimes you have to risk rejection to find acceptance. Sometimes the very thing that seems like it will tear a family apart actually makes it stronger. My phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. Thank you for not giving up on us. It said, thank you for showing me that love doesn't have to choose sides, that families can grow and change and still be families. I smiled as I pulled into my driveway. The little apartment didn't feel quite so lonely anymore, because I wasn't alone. I was part of something bigger now, something messier and more complicated than before, but also richer and more real. The next morning, I called Mrs. Thompson to thank her for the advice that had changed everything. How did it go, dear? She asked. Loved one, I told her. It always does, when you're brave enough to fight for it. She chuckled. I knew you had it in you. Sometimes the best gifts are the ones you have to unwrap carefully, she said. They might not look like what you expected, but they turn out to be exactly what you needed. That spring, Jessica asked me to help her plan Lisa's birthday party. She wanted to incorporate traditions from Lisa's childhood with new ones they were creating together. As we worked on the plans, I realized that Jessica had become more than just David's wife. She'd become my partner in loving Lisa. And that was something I'd never expected, but found myself grateful for. The party was beautiful, a perfect blend of old and new. Lisa was radiant, surrounded by people who loved her in different ways, but loved her completely. As I watched her blow out her candles, I thought about the Christmas when I'd almost let fear and pride keep me away. How different things might have been if I'd stayed home, nursing my hurt feelings instead of fighting for what mattered most. Sometimes showing up is the hardest thing you can do. Sometimes it feels like you're walking into battle, armed with nothing but love and hope. But sometimes that's exactly what the situation needs. Someone willing to be vulnerable, to risk everything for the chance to keep love alive, to prove that families don't have to break just because they change, that there's always room for one more at the table of love, if everyone's willing to scoot over and make space. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, Lisa pulled me aside. "I have something to tell you," she said, her eyes bright with excitement. "Jessica and Dad are going to have a baby." I felt my heart skip a beat. A baby, another grandchild, but also another change, another person to complicate the careful balance we'd achieved. "How do you feel about it?" I asked. "Happy," she said. "Scared, excited, worried about how it might change things between all of us." "Change doesn't have to be bad," I reminded her. "We've learned that, haven't we?" She smiled and hugged me tight. "I want you to be part of this baby's life too," she said. "I want them to know all their family, not just some of it." My eyes filled with tears. "I'd love that," I whispered. "More than you know." When the baby was born 6 months later, I was in the waiting room with David and Lisa, all of us nervous and excited together. When Jessica's parents arrived from out of state, I expected things to get awkward again. But Jessica had prepared them, told them about our unusual family situation, about how love had found a way to include everyone. Her mother was initially confused, but when she saw how well we all were together, how happy Lisa was to have all of us in her life, she began to understand. By the time we all met baby Emma, there was no question that she would grow up surrounded by love from every direction. At Emma's first Christmas, now 6 months old, we gathered again at David and Jessica's house. But this time, Jessica asked me to help with the cooking. We worked side by side in the kitchen, preparing dishes that honor both our family's traditions. As we cooked, baby Emma sat in her bouncer, gurgling happily at the activity around her. "She's going to grow up thinking this is normal," Jessica said, gesturing to our blended chaos. "That's the best gift we can give her," I replied. "The knowledge that families come in all shapes and sizes, and that love is big enough for everyone." That Christmas dinner was the most joyful we'd ever had. Emma slept peacefully in her carrier while we ate, surrounded by the sound of laughter and conversation, and the clinking of glasses raised in toast after toast. "To family," David said. "To second chances," Jessica added. "To love that never gives up," I said, looking around the table at these people who had become more precious to me than I'd ever imagined. "To showing up," Lisa said with a grin, and everyone laughed. As I drove home that night, baby Emma's tiny fingers wrapped around mine in my memory. I thought about the journey that had brought us here, how close I'd come to missing all of this because of pride and hurt feelings, how one moment of courage, one decision to show up anyway, had opened the door to more love and joy than I'd thought possible. Mrs. Thompson had been right. Love always wins, if you're brave enough to fight for it. Now, 3 Christmases later, our family includes David and Jessica, Lisa, and her new husband, Mark, baby Emma, who's now a chattering toddler, and another baby on the way. We've become something I never could have imagined when I first stood on that doorstep, uninvited but determined. We've become proof that families don't have to be perfect for each other, that love multiplies when you share it, and that there's always room for one more person who cares. Every Christmas Eve, I still have Lisa over for our traditional cookie baking and movie watching. But now Jessica comes too, and sometimes Emma, who loves to help stir the batter even though she makes a mess. Every Christmas Day, we gather at the big house that no longer feels foreign to me, but like another home. A different home, but home nonetheless. And every year, I remember that Christmas when I almost let fear win, when I almost chose pride over love, isolation over connection, when I almost missed a chance to be part of something beautiful and complicated and real. Now, when people ask me about my family, I smile and say it's wonderfully complicated, that we've learned that love isn't about ownership or competition. It's about showing up even when it's hard. It's about making room at the table, even when the table seems full. It's about choosing connection over comfort, vulnerability over safety, hope over fear. It's about remembering that the best gifts sometimes come in unexpected packages, that the people who seem like threats might actually be allies, that families can grow and change and still be families, that love, real love, is always big enough for everyone who needs it. As I finish decorating my tree this year, I smile at the ornaments that tell our story. The old ones Lisa and I made together, faded but treasured. The new ones Jessica and I picked out last year. The tiny handprint Emma made in clay, already a family tradition in the making. Each ornament represents a choice to include rather than exclude, to embrace rather than reject, to love rather than fear. They hang together on the branches, different in style and age but perfect together, creating something more beautiful than any of them could be alone. Tomorrow, Christmas Eve, Lisa and Jessica and Emma will come over for our traditional evening. We'll make cookies and watch movies and wrap last-minute presents. Emma will fall asleep in my lap while we talk softly about the year that's passed and the one that's coming. It will be chaos and joy and love all mixed together, exactly the way Christmas should be. And Christmas Day, we'll all gather at the big house, now full of laughter and life and the beautiful mess of family that chose to make room for everyone. We'll eat too much and laugh too loud, and take pictures that we'll treasure for years to come. The pictures will show a family that doesn't look like anything you'd see in a magazine. We're too diverse, too complicated, too real for that. But we're OURS, and that's what matters. We're proof that showing up, even when you're scared, even when you're not sure you're wanted, even when everything in you says to stay home and protect your heart, can lead to miracles, can lead to love multiplied instead of divided, can lead to families that are stronger because they've been tested. If you're facing your own complicated family situation this holiday season, if you're wondering whether to show up or stay away, if you're scared that there's not enough room at the table for you, let me tell you what I've learned. There's always room for love. There's always space for one more person who cares. There's always hope for healing, for connection, for second chances and new beginnings. But you have to be brave enough to show up. You have to be willing to risk rejection for the chance of acceptance. You have to choose love over fear, hope over hurt, connection over comfort. It might not work out the way you expect. It might be messy and awkward and uncertain. But it might also be the beginning of something more beautiful than you ever imagined. It might be the start of a new kind of family, one that's big enough and strong enough and loving enough to include everyone who matters. Take it from someone who almost missed out on the greatest gift of her life because she was too proud and too scared to ring the doorbell. Show up anyway. Fight for love anyway. Believe in the possibility of healing anyway. Because families are worth fighting for. Love is worth the risk. And sometimes the very thing that seems impossible is exactly what needs to happen. Sometimes showing up uninvited is the most important invitation you'll ever give yourself. The invitation to be part of something bigger than your fear, something stronger than your pride, something more powerful than your pain. This Christmas, as you're deciding whether to make that call, send that text, ring that doorbell, remember my story. Remember that love wins when we let it. That families can heal when we choose healing. That there's always room for one more at the table of love. All you have to do is be brave enough to show up and see what happens. All you have to do is choose hope. All you have to do is believe that love is bigger than whatever stands in its way. Trust me, it's worth it. Every awkward moment, every uncertain conversation, every risk you take for love is worth it. Because on the other side of that fear, on the other side of that door, on the other side of that phone call, there might be waiting the family you never knew you needed, the love you thought you'd lost, the Christmas miracle you stopped believing in. So show up anyway. Love anyway. Hope anyway. And watch what happens when you do. If you enjoyed the story of courage and second chances, hit that like button. Subscribe to Granny's Tales for more heartwarming stories. And share with us in the comment a time when showing up changed everything. Until next time, remember that love always finds a way.